Servus YouTube, Chef here. This is the update on my advanced guide for patch 1.0.10. Sorry for the long delay, but you will see how much time and work I put into this. I've spent an entire week collecting data and researching, so there's a lot of information coming. With that said, I try to be very thorough as always, but also compacted as much as possible, so you don't need to listen to me rambling for an hour. Content covered in this guide will be the new score scaling, passive nodes that don't work or do something else than stated, buildings and crafting. Timestamps on screen and below in the description to jump ahead on what interests you. Attributes. Now in the release version we no longer get health regen from ferocity, we also don't get all resistance score from toughness. They also removed dodge chance from agility and the ailment resistance score from wisdom. The score system also has drastically changed. I will go over that in detail now. Here are the numbers for the scores. I will post all of them on our community web page for anybody interested. Our base effective crit chance will always be 5%. And I've done the numbers until 12,000 critical chance score. Soft cap seems to be around 10k. Critical chance score is most effective until 1000 score. This is where we get the most net gain from our points. Any build should always get 1000, and then the breaking point seems to be around 3000. This is where it starts to fall off real hard. It's better not to waste passive nodes on critical chance score and go for crit damage after that, since critical hit damage is not a score and never will fall off. Next up we have all resistance score. Most efficient points are until 10,000, that's where we gain the most damage reduction for our points. Soft cap seems to start at 20,000, this is where it falls off real hard. And there's a hard cap at 29,500, after that we don't get any damage reduction whatsoever. Then we have passive dodge chance score. I cannot do any accurate calculations here since we cannot see the score. The only way to see the score was in beta, when agility would actually give you dodge, but since they removed it now, there's no way to look at it. I have played around with it a little bit, but all those numbers are just guesses, so don't take them for face value. Seems like there's also a soft cap system in place here. I could not reach the hard cap though, and I'm not sure if there is one in the game. It seems that until 5000 score the points are the most efficient, and after that they start to fall off just like resistance score. Next up we have attack and spellcast speed score. Wolcen Studio tried to balance now 200 weapons with minus 25% attack speed, but that is not nearly enough for the increased damage they give. Also, most of the channeled abilities do not benefit from attack speed. For example, Bladestorm or Annihilation do not get any higher damage ticks because of it. And the only channeled ability that really benefits from attack speed is Slayer's Flurry. The problem with that skill is that it does not have enough scaling with the attack speed. So overall it will always stay weaker than all the other skills, because it doesn't have enough weapon damage. Then the score seems to be most efficient until 3000. Soft cap seems to start at 6000. After that it really starts to fall off. And lastly we have ailment chance score. This is the exact same scaling as crit chance, meaning that it also starts to fall off at 3000. This is where we get the most percent for our points. Then at 6000 it starts to fall off real hard. They have removed ailment resistance score from the attribute tab, also it's nowhere to be found in the detail. But there are still passive nodes giving you that ailment resistance, so it should still be in the game, but yeah, like I said, there's currently no way to calculate that. I hope this will be patched in the future, and then I will update my numbers if they do. Then all the other numbers in the details tab are still the same, with the same scaling. I go over every single one of those, also what they do in my old advanced guide. Links in the description below to check out that one. Passives. Here's a picture of the passive nodes not working and also the ones that don't do what they say they do. The ones marked with an X don't work and the ones circled in do something different. This picture will also be available on our community page, as well as a list of the nodes that don't work and that do something different. I will first go over the nodes that do not work. Fatal Pact in the Abyssal Shaper does not give you the buff. With the exception of the damage over time, this will actually heal you. However, you will not receive the movement speed, all res or damage. Occult Affliction, also that one does not increase damage. It's supposed to increase occult damage, however I cannot confirm that. Hungry Stalactite, this is supposed to deal damage for every pierce on the projectile. Again, I don't see any damage increases on that one. The node behind Pugilist is supposed to double basic attack damage on the 4th hit, but this one does not work either. And the last passive node that is not working is Save from Afar in the Ranger tree. This does not increase damage. Now to the nodes that have a different effect as stated. First of all, we got Virtuous Stance. This is supposed to only double basic attack damage, however it also works with attack skills and also spells. Next up, Witch Time cannot heal in the Time Weaver. It's supposed to deal 100% of the hit damage again after 1.5 seconds. However, this node cannot deal critical damage. So this node is about 25% extra damage. It's still good, but not as good as stated. Next up, Residual Energy increases the damage of your attacks. This is additional damage, not an increase. Also then it states gain damage from the last spell cast. This is scaling with our total attack damage, not with our spell damage. Then we have Omni Tempest and the Oracle of the Trinity. This is supposed to shoot either a Meteor, Frost Lance or a Chain Lightning when casting elemental skills. However, the only one that can be triggered is the Meteor, Frost Lance and Chain Lightning do not work. Then we have Undertaker and the Plague Bringer. First it states it increases your toxic damage for a short duration, however it is additional damage, which it then also states in the second sentence. Picking up green globes grants you an additional 30% damage as poison, however poison is the ailment damage, so this would need to state toxic. However, it does state that it stacks with each globe picked up. But not that in multiplayer it does not matter who picks it up, everybody then gets the buff. Then we got Wolcen Smoke and the Duskglaive. This one states it increases shadow damage from the next spell cast when going invisible. Depending on which armor cosmetics you are using, you will not go invisible or glitch out the textures. And also the damage increase is not working. Next up, a Beacon for the Lost in the EOS class. This is supposed to increase sacred damage dealt by skills. However, this will give us additional sacred damage. And then the last passive node that states something different is Immortal Offering in the Kabbalist. It reads, killing an enemy grants 5% damage, however this is additional damage. And lastly, as a side note, I wanted to mention that Merciless Lethality, the minus 30% damage is calculated with our base damage, so overall a very powerful passive node. Since then our total attack damage gets multiplied with the crit damage. Then all the other passive nodes are working as intended. Buildings. The only thing that now changed in the endgame is that we can construct buildings in the Stormfall Palace. And that we have higher difficulties in running expeditions. The rest stays all the same. If you need more information on those expeditions, check out my beginner guide. I go over that in the endgame section. So first of all, we want to increase our productivity here. We grab the first 5 nodes, they are fairly cheap and it ups our productivity. Productivity is then what we use to actually finish our projects. We get those at the end of every single expedition. The best way to farm productivity is to run the maps that state guarded by a boss. It will then only spawn one boss and in a very tiny room, and it's super fast to clear and the productivity is fairly high. Then for currency, we want to unlock the Stormfall Trade Assembly. You can do that through the Stormfall Shipyard. At this one, it will give you missions with the difficulty hard. These ones then state large quantity. Those are the best for resources. Most of the time you will get more gold than primordial affinity, so unlocking this one is also a good one. You can then convert gold into primordial affinity. Then once we have that rolling, we want to unlock our 5th skill slot in the Primordial Institute. And then we get the increased prices from selling and the decreased prices from buying in the archives. After that we want to unlock the Dark Market. Don't bother with the Uber bosses, these only go until level 100, so they are quite useless. Then producing regions is very helpful. More on how to use regions in the crafting section. This is where we also increase the quality of our items and then the rarity. Be aware that you cannot increase quality once they're legendary, so always quality first and then rare them up. And we can also increase the rarity of regions. However, before we get into crafting, I recommend also upping more productivity. I recommend around 20,000 gold. This one should give you enough productivity. And we also want to finish off our other buildings. We get one more passive skill here. And the stash tabs, they are also quite helpful. Then the gold find bonus is quite useless as well, since not much gold drops in those expeditions anyways. And the magic find doesn't do too much either, also for the price that it costs. So only unlock these once you're in the super end game where you have enough resources. And I personally never use apocalyptic form, so unlock these buildings as you see fit. Crafting. Main way to get best in slot items is finding rare items with 4 affixes that we want, then upping the quality and rarity in the black market. As mentioned, you cannot increase quality on legendary items, but only bother increasing it on rare items if they got the perfect affixes. To start off, I recommend looking for rare items with the 3 most important stats on them and increasing rarity right away. I have here summarized what generic affixes to look for from most important to least important. These stats are used in any build I've done so far and will fit all of them. However, best in slot items and also importance on these stats might vary depending on which build guide of mine you're following, but this will definitely give you a very good point to follow to define a good item. Then, once we found an item with the right affixes, we have a few options. We can use regions to gamble on removing an unwanted affix or adding a preferred one. Abyssal tier are used to remove one, and the Arabian tier are used to add. And Ohm's Echo is combining these two. Entropy Orb does not really have any use, it just rerolls all the affixes, basically making it as if a new item dropped. The chance of keeping or adding an affix that we want can be influenced by socketing gems. However, this will still randomly choose from affixes that gem can give, so it's not guaranteed, but still better odds than using no gems. Prefixes and suffixes also come into play, since an item can only have 3 of either. I have linked a web page if you want a list with all the different affixes and which ones you can get through adding gems. All of those regions also have a legendary version enabling you to craft with legendary items. And lastly, we can also add special affixes with either using a Genesis stone while crafting or by running expeditions and luring Untainted. If you need more information on Untainted, check out my beginner guide in the endgame section. Sarisel affixes can either be on accessories with element stacks, pierce, or on rings with attacks gain damage from last spell cast. Helmet and chest can have a few other ones, but the most important ones are maximum willpower and rage, and damage increased per unspent rage. And lastly, on weapons we can have allows the bearer to cast a skill where we should not be able to cast it with. This is one of the most powerful ones because it enables two-handed weapons to have a way better movement spell with ether jump, for example. And it would also enable residual energy, which is a very powerful additional damage buff, which otherwise can only be triggered through the unique Pan's Wield Eclipse. For getting loot, I recommend these maps right here. Access a dungeon full of chests with a limited time to loot them all. This is the best area to get items because out of chests you also get a higher increased chance of uniques. The item level on these maps does not matter as long as you select a very high difficulty. I recommend using a fast build and just running through these maps as fast as possible, picking up every single chest. And yeah, that does it for the crafting section. I hope this guide is useful to you. It took me a very long time to make. If you appreciate the Wolcen content, leave me a like, please. Also, I hope I earned your subscription. More Wolcen content coming in the future. All of this is available on our community webpage if you are interested in the data I've gathered so far. And yeah, I'll see you in the next guide. Servus, YouTube.